This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. Donald Trump's defenses against Mar-a-Lago, the Espionage Act, are dead in the water. And I'm going to use one major example to show you why he will never win the case against the Department of Justice and Jack Smith. And it's document number 19 listed on the indictment and buried in there, but probably could be the most important document listed out of the 31 that he took. 31 counts of his 37-count indictment brought by Jack Smith down in Miami. Of those documents, 24 were top secret. The others were national defense information. Quick primer. The primary statute being used, criminal statute being used against Donald Trump by Jack Smith is the Espionage Act, which does not even turn on whether the document was classified, declassified, was never classified, doesn't matter. It matters whether it was national defense information, NDI. Things can be NDI that are not classified, technically, as long as they relate to the national defense of the country. That's what Donald Trump refuses to acknowledge. That's what his lackeys on Sunday morning talk shows don't want to talk about or admit. That may work to the gullible or those who aren't following our hot takes closely to understand the law, but it doesn't work inside of a court of law, and I'm going to tell you why. Focusing again on document number 19. Let's put it up on the board so everybody knows what I'm talking about. Document number 19 was listed as a formerly restricted data, FRD, about the military use of nuclear weapons. It has a very... it has a name that's a little bit of a non sequitur, something that sounds counterintuitive. Like, oh, he used formally restricted data? That sounds like it's okay. It was once restricted and now it's formally restricted, except that doesn't work because that is referring to the classifications of nuclear secrets by the Department of Energy. Another quick Legal AF breakout law school session. The Department of Energy, not the Pentagon, is the one responsible for the protection, ultimately, of our nuclear secrets, warhead design, plutonium, uranium production, where our nuclear codes, where the nuclear warheads are located, the nuclear codes, the nuclear football. That is a joint operation, but primarily led by the Department of Energy with the Department of Defense, the Pentagon following close behind. Each of these departments has its own classification system. The Department of Energy, we're going to flash it up on the board, has its own classification system. In fact, I found online a PowerPoint presentation by the Department of Energy to teach people that are working with or near the Department of Energy about their classification system. Things that were formally restricted data only means that the highest level of data restriction at the Department of Energy is restricted data. And that can only be shared within the Department of Energy. And that includes things like our uranium and plutonium production, warhead design, and the like. In order to share that information with people like the Pentagon, the Defense Department, and even the president, they have to step it down a classification to FRD, formally restricted data, which then goes to things like the amount of warheads, where they're located, the nuclear codes. I mean, really bad stuff if it fell into the hands of our enemy or even our allies, which is, of course, what Donald Trump is being indicted for, that he was sloppy, loose, careless, and willful with criminal intent to not protect the highest level of nuclear secrets, for, in this case, document number 19, from being purloined, picked up by the 150,000 people that traipsed their way through Mar-a-Lago, a semi-public golf course and resort in West Palm Beach or Palm Beach that Donald Trump lived at. That's how many people the Department of Justice and Jack Smith have determined that in the year and a half that Donald Trump held those documents in places like his bathroom and ballroom and storage room and unlocked closets and in his hallway, that's how many people had access ultimately to those documents, 150,000. And all they had to do was take document number 19, like the Chinese spy, the woman who showed up at a party, who was obviously a Chinese spy at Mar-a-Lago a year and a half ago, with multiple passports and burner phones and taking photos. If she had gotten her hands on that, you can imagine what would have happened to our national security. Document number 19, then, don't be fooled by it being listed up on the indictment as formally restricted data that didn't give Donald Trump the opportunity to use it or to declassify it. And that's the point. The point is that under the Department of Energy's and the Atomic Energy Act of 1954, Congress has given responsibility for the protection of our nuclear secrets, literally, not to the president or whoever the current occupant is in the White House, but to the professional staff, the civil servants of the Department of Energy, not even the Pentagon. And they deal with their own classification system. And by statute, those documents are automatically classified, not by executive order, not because they touched the executive branch or the president at the time, but by statute. And they can only be declassified by a statutory process that's laid out by Congress, which is the Department of Energy and the Department of Defense, and the two heads of those agencies get together and decide if something should be declassified. Why does all this matter? Because Donald Trump keeps telling people at fundraisers, rallies, speeches, interviews on right-wing media that he's going to be absolved from the criminal indictment because he declassified everything. And I'm here to tell you that at least one of the 31 documents could never have been declassified by Donald Trump because they were nuclear weaponry and nuclear secret related, and that can only be declassified by the Department of Energy along with the Department of Defense, period. So even if he were able to convince a jury or an appellate court that his theory that he could magically declassify things gives him a defense to the Espionage Act, which isn't based on classification systems at all, but based only on the quality and content, the existential quality of the document itself, that if it relates to national defense, doesn't need a classification system. It's just NDI. You're dead under the Espionage Act if you willfully, meaning not accidentally and intentionally, kept the documents from the rightful owner, which is the people of America and the government after you've left office, right? So even if classification system matter, and it doesn't, even if you were to buy that load of BS from Donald Trump or any of the people who are not qualified to talk about these things on television that pretend to be his lawyers like Alina Habba, I can point you now, and now you can point out to your friends and family and other people you're debating with that there's at least one document that doesn't matter because Donald Trump as president, no president, Joe Biden, Obama, name a president, couldn't declassify document number 19 listed on the indictment because it's nuclear in nature. Period. End of story. So even if he gets convicted of one count under the Espionage Act for mishandling nuclear information, he's going to jail for 20 years. I want to bring that to your attention because we sort of glossed over the 50 pages of the indictment. Yeah, we covered it on the MeidasTouch network. Yeah, Ben Meiselas and I did a number of hot takes on this to try to unpack it, right? To try to explain it. Yeah, we did podcasts on it, on Legal AF. But I want you to focus on this one thing. If you take nothing away from the hot take, go off and tell people that you've been arguing with that they should go look at document number 19 and how it's listed. And when they say to you, well, it's right there. It says formally restricted. It means he could use it. Tell them that's the opposite of what it means. That under the Department of Energy's classification system, that's just a step-down classification to allow the DEA, the Department of Energy, to share it with the Pentagon. That's all it means. Still classified, still nuclear, and can't be declassified by the occupant of the White House. Now you're going to hear, because it's happened over and over again, that under a theory that even the U.S. Supreme Court doesn't back, of the unitary executive theory, it's my final point on the hot take, which Jeffrey Clark, who would be the new Attorney General if Trump ever got elected, P.S. Trump is not getting reelected or elected. But if these crazies like Jeff Clark, Michael Flynn Bannon ever get their hands back into the White House, they're going to argue time and time again that there's something called the unitary executive theory, which says that everything that the executive, the president of the United States, touches, he's allowed to do unfettered without any checks and balance by the co-equal branch of government, Congress. And so that since he's responsible for war and foreign policy under the Constitution, which is not exactly correct, because there is a role for for Congress, as the Founding Fathers laid out, he gets to decide what's classified and not classified. That power is given to him. It's unitary. It's his. It's combined in him or her, whoever occupies it. And under that theory, he can magically declassify. That is a load of BS. It's used by future fascists and former fascists who want to create a dictatorship, who want to create a supreme leviathan in the form of the presidency, because that's where they devolve their own power from. And so they want to make the president, right, have this unfettered, unlimited power as if he were a king or a dictator. Fortunately, that's not what the Constitution says, nor the Founding Fathers, and that's not what even the Supreme Court, right wing of the Supreme Court, although it'll be a close vote, but it'll be shot down, that unitary executive theory. What won't be shot down and will be upheld, I'll tell you from my own experience, is that document number 19 is going to be Donald Trump's undoing. And at the very least, you can tell your friends, families, and others that you talk these things over with that he's dead to rights on the nuclear secrets that he had in his boxes, among the 85 boxes and the 31 documents that make up the 31 counts of the indictment for the Espionage Act. He's dead. Okay? Now, people are getting some fatigue about, the indictment seems so last week. Former president of the United States was just indicted federally for violation of 31 violations of the Espionage Act, and conspiracy, and obstruction, and false statement to the government, and destruction of documents, and the list goes on. And finally, let me just say it once and for all on this particular hot take. Donald Trump is not being investigated, indicted, and criminally prosecuted because he's the political rival of Joe Biden. All those things are happening because he committed crimes, or there's substantial evidence, overwhelming evidence that demonstrates that he did. And what kind of justice system would we have if we turned a blind eye because it was the guy in the other party? What does that matter? There's an entire division of the Department of Justice that deals with public corruption for people who are in elected office. They're in one party or the other. And sometimes the Department of Justice of the other party, if you will, the party in power, has to go after the Republican that took a bribe, and vice versa. We've had plenty of examples in U.S. history where a Republican administration and Department of Justice had to go after and did go after Democrats who committed crimes, whether it be bribery or extortion or theft of honest services or one of those things. And now the shoe's on the other foot. And just because you like the guy, I don't know how you continue to like Donald Trump, but just because you like the guy or he was your president or you like to see him get reelected, that's not a reason for an entire body of jurisprudence and justice to look the other way because he used to be, the president and is in the other party of the party that's currently in power. That is not what this government and this country and its founding principles as a constitutional republic is based on. We're a nation based on the laws, on the laws. Sorry, got stumbled there. On laws, not of man, right? And so those laws applies equally to everybody. And let me answer the question that might be on some people's minds that watch these hot takes. Would Popok be just as strenuous if this was a former Democratic president? And the answer is yes. I supported the investigation, possible impeachment of Bill Clinton for bad things that he did. Okay. Now, some of the things he got impeached and some of the things he didn't get criminally indicted for. But if there was enough evidence to make a prosecutorial decision to indict Bill Clinton, I would have supported it. He has the right to be presumed innocent and to fashion a defense. But I wouldn't have stood up here if there was a podcast and there was an internet and there was YouTube 20 years ago, I wouldn't have got up and said, oh, I like the guy so much, let's not indict him. That is just, the Republicans going after their political enemy. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. Believe in our justice system. Believe in the Department of Justice. Believe in our jurisprudence. Because that is ultimately all that we have to hold on to. It is the last guardrail of democracy. It is the conscience of democracy, our justice system. And I report on it about every day. At that intersection of law and politics, those politically charged litigation matters, on hot takes just like this one. If you like this one, give me a thumbs up. Helps the algorithm, helps keep it top of the charts, helps the quality and the quantity of what we're doing. I co-anchor and co-founded a podcast just like this one. We just stretch it out for an hour, talk about 5 or 6 topics at the intersection of law and politics, only on the MeidasTouch network, called Legal AF. You can catch it on Wednesdays and you can catch it on Saturdays on the MeidasTouch YouTube channel, or the following morning everywhere on audio platforms that you get your podcast from. And if you like what I'm doing, I'm Michael Popok, and you can catch me on all things social media at MS Popok. This is Michael Popok, Legal AF reporting.
Hey, Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.